Welcome to the Epic Success Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Shannon Irvine. All right, today I want to talk about the patterns that are really controlling your business results. If you are a coach or a service provider, someone who is getting somebody from an A to a B, I am talking to you today about something that I wish I would have known when I started my business. And it's this idea of patterns and pattern recognition. Do you recognize the repeated patterns that you've created in your life? Because what patterns you see show you a glimpse of what is an automation in your mind, and how you do one thing is going to be how you do all things. So we can't expect to ignore patterns in one area of our life and think we're going to kind of dodge those patterns in our business. And I want to talk about this from a very personal place, because when I first got into business a long time ago, honestly, there was a pattern that I would create. And I witnessed during our move to Texas that pattern wanted to recreate itself. And I'll see this a lot in high performing entrepreneurs and coaches where they'll have this pattern. They'll be great starters, or they'll be great hard workers, or they'll be great beginners and starters, but not finishers. And so I know when I first got into business, I was trying to solve the problem of income, right? But what I didn't realize or recognize at that time was that my pattern in terms of income, before I went and learned the way the brain creates results and the way the brain removes things that don't work, that your brain works in these patterns. So what I was doing was approaching, I want to create a business to create more income, normal conversation to have in the mind. But what I didn't notice were my patterns. My patterns were, and I wonder if this is going to resonate with anybody. My pattern was I would start things, get all excited, be all in, just like a bull in a china shop, all the energy, right? But then when it came to maintaining that thing, when it came to 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, there's a scripture that says, do not grow weary in doing good, right? Because the blessing comes from not growing weary. It's from continuing the work, not just starting the work. So as I became aware of this, as I was developing the sync results model, the coaching model in which I teach coaches how to coach through the lens of how your brain creates results and how it removes things that get in the way, I had this repeated pattern. I'd start working out. After about a month, I would give it up and go for a different workout. Now, here's the thing. I was continuing to work out, but if I was honest, the pattern was I got bored. That's the reality. The pattern was I'm a great starter, but I would get bored in the middle. So why am I sharing this embarrassing pattern with you? Because here's the gold nugget. Where your patterns are, so will you be. Let me say that again. Where your patterns are, so will you be. If I put that in the brain science kind of terminology is where your automations are, so you will be. You can't outperform your subconscious. These patterns or these automations, they're there to make your daily living easier. They're there because you've repeated them so often. Your mind sees that as a belief. And then your brain does this beautiful thing of taking those things that have been in repetition so much and putting it into a place where you don't have to think about it anymore. You could call those habits or patterns. Some patterns are great. I have a pattern every single night with praying with my kids. I have a pattern of reading scripture with my kids every day. I have a pattern that I don't go to bed without saying goodnight and kissing my husband and telling him I love him. I have a pattern that I don't go to bed angry. So I have a lot of good patterns, and so do you, that have driven good things and good results in your life and been beneficial. However, I'm talking directly to you coaches and those people getting a transformation for people somewhere, like they're getting a business result or a health result or relational result or some kind of result from A to B, right? So if you're a coach, course creator, service provider, but you're really helping people get a result, it's key that you know what your patterns are and you help your clients recognize their patterns. Now, that's the great thing about coaches is we're great at recognizing patterns. Most really excellent coaches that I get to certify through our coach certification program, they learn this pattern recognition. They learn this, transform people, right? So it doesn't need to be these huge transformations. There is gold in micro transformations. So like, I really want you to write that on a sticky note, like grab a sticky note and write, there's gold in micro transformation. Why? Because it's in the micro, it's in the daily, it's in the moments that you're doing what's called stacking or habit stacking or micro stacking, which is actually building these patterns. So we think, what's the harm in one day? Just here's how it shows up, or here's how it showed up for me. So maybe you're like me, and I hope this is really helpful. It might not be my same patterns, but hopefully you can kind of start recognizing it. So like I talked about the workout, I would change the workouts I was doing. Okay, still was working out. But here's what we do in business. Here's what we do as a coach. It's like we go all in on a program to help people. And then we get, we start to feel a slump of having to actually move and market and become known in the marketplace and having a powerful identity and stepping forward and all those things. And then we say, wait a minute, I'm just more interested. I'm multi-passionate. I'm going to create a program over here. I hope this doesn't hurt, is like stinging somebody probably, but we just jump from thing to thing to thing, or training to training to training. And this is a pattern. This is a pattern because you're smart. You're wickedly smart. I know you are. And so there's this knowing that you kind of do internally know what to do to drive the needle, right? But we ignore these patterns and we think we can outperform them, out hustle them, out willpower them, out motivate them. I don't know, those old broken models of coaching that don't work, by the way, that actually cause harm. So that's why I wanted to record this around patterns, because when you can start, first of all, acknowledging the patterns that have served you well and that have taken you to new heights, that have created results, that have, helped you to show up. Like maybe you have a pattern of being a great friend. Maybe you have a pattern of avoiding friendships and not going deep, right? Maybe you have a pattern with your spouse or significant other of showing them their value and validating that every day. Maybe you don't, right? But these patterns start in the micro. They start in the daily moments and decisions, and they stack. That's how your brain works. They stack. And when you get to 67 stacks in a pattern, it goes into your subconscious and automates. What that means is you're never thinking the thought again. So meaning it's firing without your permission or knowledge anymore. So if there are patterns in your life that you don't enjoy, that aren't creating the results in your business, in your relationships, in your health, in your finances that you love, then here's what I want you to do to start breaking down this pattern. It's pattern recognition. You hear that in like computer science, and you hear that in a lot of other places. What's a pattern recognition? AI is all about pattern recognition. So what if you become what if you get so excited about seeing that it's not a good or bad. It's not a you suck or you don't suck. It's not a who am I or who am I not. It's just a matter of the patterns that you've built. And when you simplify it that way, the judgment releases from it. Because I don't know about you, but man, I can judge myself. In fact, I'm going to do a podcast episode around the biggest judgments I have said and done to myself that almost took me out of the game this last year. I feel really called. And if that would be helpful to you, just let me know on Instagram, because I think we think that when people succeed to a certain level, they never have pattern interrupts. And that's what this last year has been for me, is a pattern interrupt. And man, I was really judging, and not just myself, but others in the situation and everything, patterns I did not want to create. So why am I saying that? I'm saying that because you can get just really curious. If it's just about the patterns, most of these patterns, by the way, you didn't choose, were created when you were young or a young adult. Those are now, you have the ability to just say, okay, I love these patterns. I'm going to keep them. And these patterns, these processes, this is not serving me well. Like maybe it served you when you were young, maybe it served you when you're in your 20s, but it no longer serves the goals that you have for yourself now. And so I'm going to encourage you to, first of all, identify those patterns, become a pattern recognizer, and then just pick one of those patterns. Don't try to do them all. Just pick one of those patterns. And with no judgment, with no criticism, with no worth conversation around the pattern, just look at the pattern and ask this one question. Okay, if I was to flip this pattern on its head, if I was to do the opposite of this pattern, what would be the first thing that I would do? Because remember, how patterns get created are these micro moments, right? So in the micro moment, you stacked those micro moments, they became enough 67 stacks of that, and it became an automation, right? So in the pattern. So what you get to do is say, okay, I recognize the pattern. I want to disrupt the pattern. I want to be a pattern interrupt. Okay. So if I'm trying to change the pattern of disappearing on my friends, which is a pattern that I have had to work on, and this last year has been really eye-opening how quickly, if I don't continue to repeat the pattern I want, the old default patterns will kick back in, right? So say I want to make sure that I'm always there for my friends and that I'm always the instigator, right? So no neutral friendships, but that I am the pursuer. So what would I do? Well, the first thing I would do is just set an alarm that I call my friends weekly, right? So you start creating this micro moment, which creates a micro habit that you just start to build a pattern around. And that pattern starts to, after 67 stacks, really does go into that automation part of your subconscious. And then it starts becoming just who you are. So the thing I love about patterns and pattern recognition is when you have an identity that you're trying to shift to, get to be, then it doesn't have to be complicated or willpower, or you don't have to know all the perfect things. You just have to recognize the patterns and then pick one pattern and say, if I was doing the opposite of this pattern, what would be the first thing I would do? And start doing that micro moment, that micro decision. And then over just a short period of 67 repetitions, you've now developed a new pattern that your brain can take over and automate. And then you can go after other patterns. But I would say go after the one that is causing you the most shame. Because when our patterns cause us shame, we hide. We play small. We play less than God called us to be. And so I want you to use the tool that God gave you to have anything you want to create, have abundance beyond what you could ever ask, think, or imagine, and remove the things that are getting in the way. And the pattern recognition of the mind is your powerful tool that I want to give you today. And I would love to hear if this podcast has supported you, served you, made your day and your life a little bit better. I would love it if you could give us a 5-star review on whatever platform it is that you listen and watch to podcasts. And it would mean a lot. It's like a big warm hug for us podcasters to hear that it's landing, that it's making a difference in your life, because that's exactly why I do this, is to help you elevate your thinking and elevate your patterns so you can elevate your life. All right, until next time, thank you for listening to the Epic Success Podcast. Bye for now.